Welcome to our Swift Epiphanies.
I'm Tanya.
And I'm Emery.
We're a mother and daughter with an admiration
and a little obsession
for Taylor Swift.
In this podcast, we let you in on our discussions of Taylor's artistry,
her genius,
and her poetry.
Her music evokes powerful emotions
and has led to epiphanies both personal and universal.
Come along and join our deep conversations as we share our Swift epiphanies.
Hello, welcome to this episode of our Swift Epiphanies. Today is an exciting topic for us. We've been thinking about this for a while now, and we're really excited to dive in. We're talking about juxtapositions in Taylor's songs, in her lyrics, and within her albums.
It's one of my favorite words in the Taylor universe, and I think she's used it often. We're going to talk about how she uses juxtaposition in her storytelling, in her songwriting, in her poetry, and in anything else she wants, because she's the queen. It's going to be one of my favorites. I was so excited when we started talking about juxtaposition, and in fact, to the point where there will be 2 parts to this topic.
I love this because it's part of being human. We experience multiple emotions, multiple life events all at the same time. Or you can be going through a breakup, but a breakthrough in your personal life at the same time. And I love how wonderful Taylor is at encapsulating this, at bringing us into what's human and what we can experience through the myriad of emotions that we feel.
From the very beginning of Taylor's career, she has been able to take 2 different sides of a coin and write about it and dive so deeply into the emotions on both sides that you believe it. She's so poetic in that she can bring those 2 opposite views to light. The other thing that's compelling is that I absolutely love the word juxtaposition. The definition of juxtaposition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary is the act or an instance of placing 2 or more things side by side, often to compare or contrast or to create an interesting effect. Or it is also the state of being so placed. It is the human experience. That's what life is. Life is one big juxtaposition at any given time. I think it's a magical word, to be honest, because it just sounds beautiful and wonderful, and it conveys the conflict and the confusion and the complete opposition of 2 things, but yet it brings it into this harmony. And I've been starting to think of it as a harmonic contradiction, that there's these contradictions, but they live in harmony and they live together. And sometimes it can be dissonant, but sometimes it can be this perfect harmony of contradictions. And even though you don't understand why they go together, they definitely go together. Or they can be completely opposing and make no sense in the same realm. But one of the reasons that I like the way we structured this podcast is that we're talking about different Taylor Swift eras and the juxtapositions within those eras, because over time you can learn a lot and you can change and shift your views on things. But I love that in her specific eras, there's juxtaposition, and sometimes more than 2 different views of something, but showing that they're within those eras shows more of the human experience, that it can happen at any time, that we have those contrasting and contradicting experiences, emotions, thoughts, ideas, etc. So let's start with her first era, where from the beginning, amazing that a songwriter and storyteller so young can get so deeply into different feelings and emotions and experiences.
Yeah, her debut album remains my favorite. And to me, it just gets better and better over time the more I listen to it and go back to it. Truly, she starts off her music career so strong in this album. And I think she nails these emotions that we feel now and that we felt then when she released this album.
All right. So in her debut, there are quite a few actually in this first one, because she just takes us from one end of the pendulum to the other with romantic feelings and romantic emotions and relationship experiences. So we have Tim McGraw versus Picture to Burn. These are two post-relationship songs, but the sentiment is very different at the end of these or looking back at these. You know, Tim McGraw is looking at all of these sweet little things that happened during the relationship and hoping that when those memories are ignited, they bring good and wonderful and great memories with them. But then the opposite of that is Picture to Burn. And I want no memory of this at all. I'm going to get rid of every piece of this relationship and I don't want it to even exist because that's how angry I am. So those two are so very different in their reaction.
And it's interesting to me the thought that they can be about the same person. At different points, you can feel both of those ways about a relationship. It's just right off the bat a very striking opposition in reaction.
So that's one example. Another example is Mary's song versus Teardrops on My Guitar, because Mary's song is all about this lovely friendship that did blossom and took them to very old age and complete love, just this small town love that worked out right. And Teardrops on My Guitar is this friendship that never develops. No matter how much she really wants, it won't, and it's not, and he's clueless and
eternal friend zone.
Not only eternal friend zone, but tormented friend zone.
Yeah. I mean, that's a heartbreaker for sure. The lyrics are definitely opposed in these two songs, but the sound too. Like Teardrops on My Guitar is just, it's heartbreaking. And then you've got Mary's song, which is just fun and exciting and cute. And so they're very, very different sound wise as well.
So then another contradiction is our song versus Perfectly Good Heart, because our song is just thoughtful love. It's the simplicity of love. It's just the day-to-day and commitment and being there for each other and like doing the kind things for each other. And then A Perfectly Good Heart is just bad intentions. And I don't know why this went wrong. I don't understand it. It's why would this happen? You know, so those are two kind of contradictory feelings in love. So those are just a couple of ways to point out the opposition and the juxtaposition in her songwriting and in her storytelling. But the two I want to get into most for her debut album are Cold as You and I'm Only Me When I'm With You. The reason I want to get a little bit more into these is because they're so obviously different.
Yeah, simply in the titles, you can tell that there's this difference, similar wording, but just the feeling of those words. I'm only me when I'm with you. You can automatically feel that emotion. You can think of a time when you felt like yourself because of someone you've been around. And then Cold as You, you immediately feel that emotion of ice. I love the way Taylor titles her songs because you just immediately get that sense for what emotion you're going to be feeling throughout the lyrics.
These two for me give such a clear picture of what the relationship does for the people involved. Cold as You, it's so delicate. It's so awful. I mean, it's like walking on a sheet of ice and not knowing when it's going to break out from under you and wondering how and why and trying to like tiptoe so carefully around this relationship. It's just trying to make something work that is not working. Some of the lyrics in this are so deep. I mean, from the very beginning, she says, when you take the very best of me. There's condescension in it. There's this embarrassment and feeling like I have to be something different, or I have to tiptoe, or I have to pretend in Cold as You. And then in I'm Only Me When I'm With You, that sentiment is almost a perfect relationship. You want to feel like yourself with your partner more than anybody else. You want to be able to open up. You want to be able to not hide. You want to find comfort. I'm Only Me When I'm With You gives us this ideal, and we deserve somebody who makes us feel like ourselves.
I love the juxtaposition of you drive me crazy half the time. It's okay because you love each other.
It's playful. It's fun. The reality is nobody is perfect. And so people will drive you crazy, but it's whatever else happens in the other half of the time.
Versus in Cold as You, where she says, I start a fight because I need to feel something, and you do what you want because I'm not what you wanted.
And out of the two relationships, of course, the one I want to be in is where I feel like myself, where I feel like I'm only me when I'm with this person because he knows every aspect of me. He knows all the secrets, he knows all the quirks, and he still loves them. That's why I think these two are both genius, but very, very different takes
Yeah,
on relationships.
absolutely. Again, I just love this album.
It's real good. It's real good.
Okay, well, so we're gonna move on to Fearless. And this album, I feel like, has much less juxtaposition. Every song in the Fearless album, I feel like could be in a rom-com,
That's a good point.
in a movie, or in a fairy tale, like Love Story and White Horse. And Today Was a Fairy Tale. And so while I was going through, I was finding it hard to find juxtaposition, because while there's differences, there's love songs and there's breakup songs and there's non-love related songs, I still kept going back to this idea that all of these could be in a movie.
Yeah.
But while it could be in a movie of some kind, I feel like 15 kind of breaks that mold a little bit, in that it's very realistic. The reality of high school, you're not always going to get the football captain, and you're not always going to have the most magical first kiss. You're going to have some heartbreak. And I think 15 just breaks this sort of movie fairy tale cloud that Fearless is in.
I think that's a really good point, because you're right. When I was looking through it, I could not find direct opposition. One small one that I kind of looked at and thought about was Fearless versus 15, only because I'm looking at Fearless as this jumping in, this kind of not worrying about stuff and having the courage and fearlessness. But then 15, there's so much worry and anxiety and self-conscious thought in 15, which is very realistic. And so I kind of paired those two together as a possible juxtaposition, only because of that fearless versus trepidation and the reality of this gut fear that you have going into your freshman year of high school.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I mean, it's in the title, it's Fearless,
Yeah.
but really it's this idea that nothing can stop you, that you are who you are, and you love that, and you can just go forward. But 15 is all about that anxiety and self-consciousness.
And when I was 15, living these insecurities and these worries and these thoughts and these moments, constantly self-conscious, I would look at other people and think they were fearless and think
Yeah.
they didn't have worries. They didn't have the self-conscious thoughts that I did. But of course, everybody does. But I think we can look at other people and see fearless in them when we don't feel fearless in ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. There is one pairing that I wanted to kind of dive a little deeper into, and that's Hey Stephen and White Horse. So these are both kind of pining songs, but they end very differently. And the intention, the energy behind them is very different. White Horse, she had been pining, and this is kind of the end of that for her. It's where she kind of steps back and says, I gave you chances to love me back, and I'm done. I'm stepping back. You can't come in here anymore. You can't be this presence in my mind that I'm waiting on anymore. And Hey Stephen is about not giving up. I like this person, and I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to wipe off the inhibitions and just go for it and be quirky and be fun and be myself and keep trying. And specifically, I wanted to share in Hey Stephen, she says, I could give you 50 reasons why I should be the one you choose. That's to me what the energy in this song is about. I'm going to give you all these reasons to love me and to be with me, and I can't help myself. It's just this confidence in her that I can go after what I want, as opposed to White Horse, which is a very different kind of confidence in yourself. It's a recognition of who you are and what you won't tolerate anymore. And in White Horse, she says, "My mistake, I didn't know to be in love. You had to fight to have the upper hand." It's a very big shift between these two songs.
There's a very big contrast in kind of this depth of maturity in what the songs are trying to convey. Yeah.
I feel like this pairing could even be a symbol of the album as a whole. I feel like this album has a lot of those fun, love, exciting, hopeful songs. And then on the other side, you have songs of deep recognition that something's not working out or somebody hurt you. And so I feel like that's kind of the main juxtaposition that we get in this album.
I love Fearless. I love that Fearless is the title track because she's not apologizing for nothing.
No, and she shouldn't.
No. Well, moving on from Fearless, then we have Speak Now. I think Speak Now just solidifies her as an amazing storyteller, an amazing musician, amazing vocalist. And I think she just hits it out of the park with Speak Now. I have a soft spot in my heart for Speak Now.
No, I agree. I think it was one of the first that I was mentally there for when she released it. I was starting to get older, and so some of these lyrics are definitely the first that I can remember diving deep into and feeling like I related to in some small sense of the word. I think Speak Now is just a special album.
Yeah. Here's kind of a quick on the surface juxtaposition. Back to December and Better Than Revenge. These are both kind of breakup songs or the end of a relationship, and they have a very different perspective or a different angle on why it went wrong. So Better Than Revenge, of course, is her blaming the other girl and all the anger and the revenge and the jilted and all of the stuff that's pent up anxiety and rage because somebody ruined this relationship. And then Back to December is her acknowledgement of this relationship ended because of me, and I'm taking ownership over it, and I'm sad about it, and there's regret, and there's a tender heart with it, kind of these fond memories and this admission of things were so good and I kind of messed it up. A very different rearview mirror on this relationship than Better Than Revenge.
I agree. And I think Back to December also opposes Speak Now in some ways, because Back to December, like you're saying, is this relationship she realizes that she kind of ruined and it's a little too late to get it back. Whereas Speak Now, maybe it's not too late to get it back. Maybe even while he's at the altar with someone else, it's not too late.
Yes, I love that.
To get this relationship back. I think Back to December is a beautiful song. It works to contradict a lot of other Taylor Swift songs because it is very unique.
Yeah, I think it was a beautiful tribute to all of those relationships that we have that sometimes we think, maybe the fates were involved and maybe it's a good thing that this didn't happen, but I can see where I went wrong and I'm learning from it and I'm growing from it. And I can come out of this relationship with fondness and love and understanding and look back at it and think, these are the things I want in a good relationship. Sadly, this didn't work out, probably because of me, and acknowledging that it was really good. But I do love that contradiction with that and Speak Now, because Speak Now is, I'm going to do what I can to reclaim this relationship and it might not be too late.
Yeah, I don't care that you're clearly with another woman.
Yeah, but it's also like, let me just step in and remind you that we make more sense than the pastry.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Okay, so there's another one that I want to talk about. This is one that you had brought up previously. One of the deluxe songs, If This Was a Movie, it may not be super well known by everybody, but I love this song. It is a great addition to this album. And you had juxtaposed that with Dear John. And I can't stop thinking about it because Dear John is a very well-known post-relationship song. If This Was a Movie is also a post-relationship song, not super well-known. The contrast of these is the reality versus the surface. If it was a movie, all you would have to do is say you're sorry. We'd be back together. We could go on as nothing ever happened. All would be forgiven. We'd move on. We'd be together. It kind of gives this visual of a rom-com. There's a breakup, but she's just waiting for him and he comes running out onto set and he apologizes and they realize that they love each other and they hug and kiss and make up and they're together forever. So that's what it would be if it was a movie. And then Dear John is this reality of we are not characters in a movie. There's no script. The reality is you broke me and it's over and it's done. I can't stop thinking about that whole juxtaposition of what things look like on the surface and what things are deep down. And I think in the relationship that Taylor had that may or may not have led to the writing of Dear John, there could have been people that had looked at it on the surface. All that has to happen is an apology. You can get back together. It can be this happily ever after ending. But in Dear John, she's like, no, there's no happily ever after. It's over. It's done. And I'm moving on and the movie's over.
Yeah.
If you put a montage together of the memories in Dear John, it would be heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, awful, and you would realize they should not be together. But if you did a montage of if this was a movie, the montage would be happy and lighthearted and all these romantic moments. Very, very different endings.
Very different memories associated with the relationships.
Yeah.
For sure.
The one I really, really want to get into deeply with Speak Now is Mean versus Long Live. And the reason for that is because it's not always about romance. It's not always about breakups. It's not always about that. It can also be about other relationships in our life, our perceptions, our life experiences. And I think that's where Mean and Long Live come in the Speak Now era, because Mean is such a good song that so many people have taken as an anthem against the people that try to tear them down. Mean is standing up for yourself. Mean is calling someone out. It's really shining a light on someone who is being mean. And then I am so glad she also included Long Live in this album, because Long Live is this strong bond of relationships of people that will cherish each other forever, people that are supportive and loving and holding each other up and helping each other succeed. And it's very, very different than Mean.
I love these two as well. I think they're both very much anthems. And I think it really speaks to personal growth. It speaks to self-confidence and the ways that we improve ourselves, regardless of who we're with or what we're doing in life. This is about her being her and standing up against people that say she shouldn't be. And Long Live is her loving the people that support her. And I love this sort of juxtaposition of recognizing the people that would tear you down versus recognizing the people that are lifting you up, and kind of that shift in perspective of it's not just all these people that are against me. It's, hey, I've got this team of people that love me and that support me and that I can love for forever. And I love it. And I think Mean it's a very like lighthearted take on it, but I think Long Live shows a sort of deeper, no, this is a fight to be myself. And yeah, I don't know. I love it.
Yeah. And also there's a juxtaposition within Mean itself, calling out this person who has tried to tear you down in a humorous way. I like the take that she has on that of, okay, we're going to fight. Well, I'm going to fight this way because I'm really good at it. And I love
Yeah.
the way she fights it. I love the way that she throws punches in Mean because it's lighthearted, but yet she's taking it and being like, I'm going to turn the mirror around on you. Here it is.
Yeah.
I love it. I love both of these songs because you're right. They're both anthems with a very different focus.
So, moving on from Speak Now, Red is packed full of songs. Red is definitely a shift, not only in the sound of her music, but I feel like also in the themes of her music. So, to start, we just have a couple lighter, maybe surface level contradictions or contrasts. And the first one is We're Never Getting Back Together. And stay, stay, stay. You know,
Because again, in the titles, I mean, it's obvious that these two are about completely different things. They're both
I
like fun and like high energy, and they're both that like exciting, fun to sing along with, fun to dance along to, but very different perspectives.
Yeah. Another one that is kind of simple is the difference between Begin Again and The Moment I Knew. And kind of the sad melancholy of recognizing when it's over versus that moment where it starts up again. Something new is forming. And The Moment I Knew is very sad. And it's just that kind of dread of maybe you've been in denial for a while, but it really is over. And Begin Again, there's no dread in this. There's really just a hope of this one might be different, and it already is looking different, and I feel different. And it's just that sweet, exciting beginning versus the dreadful ending.
Yeah, I love that comparison.
I also wanted to talk about Treacherous and I Knew You Were Trouble because these two are somewhat similar. I feel like they would fall into the same category of Taylor songs, but the energy behind them I feel like is very different, or the outcome, I suppose. I Knew You Were Trouble is kind of an oops. In my mind, that's like the feeling or the word that comes when I think of this song. It's that I knew better, perhaps, but I didn't care. And now we're here. And she just jumps in on this one. She knew he was trouble, and yet here she is in this relationship again. Hey, I knew it. Oh well, oops. But Treacherous is very different. It's filled with so much hesitation, and it's more of a I knew that you're trouble and I tried to stay away and I should stay away. And my brain is on overtime trying to convince me not to do this. But I can't hold on to my brain. My heart just takes over. It's that sort of war internally that she's having of I know you're wrong for me, but I can't help myself versus I knew you're trouble, which is I know you're wrong for me and let's go. They're just
Yeah.
very, very different energies.
Yeah, there's definitely an impulsiveness about I knew you were trouble, almost like carefree. I don't even care what's going to happen. It's impulsive. I was aware, but I
Yeah.
was impulsive and I was going to enjoy every minute of that train wreck.
Hmm.
And then with Treacherous, there's this hesitation and this like, I really don't want to be pulled into this train wreck. I really shouldn't be pulled into this train wreck, but kind of still being pulled into the train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that metaphor of it being a train wreck.
Yeah, they're both definitely train wrecks. One is like jumping all the way in, and the
Mhm.
other is kind of being dragged in.
Yeah.
But this whole magnetism of like, I can't stop it, but I probably should. And the other one's like, I should stop it, but I won't.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's Red. Maybe one of the biggest juxtapositions of the Red album is that it really is like hopeful love songs versus breakups. You could put all of the Red songs in those two categories with a couple of exceptions that are not necessarily autobiographical or even about relationships. But Red is so focused on those two oppositions of hopeful love and devastating breakup. Maybe that's where we leave Red, is that there's always hope. There's always hope for a new beginning, even after you have devastation.
Yeah, I feel like Red is very dominated by these harsh breakups, these ruined love stories. And then there's those bright spots of something lovely beginning again, or a simple love that was just what it needed to be at the time. And I love that there's these simple, lovely relationships in here. And I love that about Red. I think it's a beautiful album and very cohesive too.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's where we leave Red. And then we move on to 1989.
1989.
What are your thoughts on 1989 juxtapositions?
It's just so good, but it somehow gets overshadowed by her other music for me. But every time I come back to 1989, I remember how much I love these songs.
So let's talk about 1989 as one big juxtaposition in and of itself. There's so many different angles that 1989 takes. It is kind of a very eclectic album. It's an eclectic mix of sounds. There's just so much going on in 1989. I think you could pair up almost any two songs and there would be some kind of contrast or
I agree.
juxtaposition.
I think eclectic is the perfect word for this album. I think all these topics are very different. And I think this is one where she starts to talk more and more about non relationship topics and just life in general. I think she shares life in general in this album. And I think it is very fitting for the title 1989. Like that's a real year. And this is real life that she shows us. Like Welcome to New York and Shake It Off and Bad Blood and these songs that don't necessarily have anything to do with a certain romance. They're just life and they're just fun.
Well, I look at Shake It Off and Bad Blood. There's kind of a contradiction in reaction to these two things. Something could be going wrong, and she's like, just shake it off, just let it go, move on, do your own thing. And then there's Bad Blood, where it's like, I'm going to hold this grudge and there's going to be revenge involved. And I'm going to, feel hurt and bothered by this situation. So, how can she sing about both of those things? Because they're both real and they're both accurate and they're both part of her world. And maybe the whole idea is we have to figure out what things to shake off and what things to fight for and what things to highlight.
Yeah, what isn't worth you getting angry about and what is, and what needs a sort of justice. I also think blank space and style are kind of a simple juxtaposition in that blank space is about a consistent turnover. This is a temporary situation. You will be mine for a short time. I will be yours for one night. And this just turnover that just adds you to a list.
And there will be a replacement as you're walking out the door.
Yep. Whereas style is about this person who will always work with you, will always be someone you can go back to because you never go out of style. It's not a turnover, it's a constant. It's someone that you can always find your way back to. And so that's just a fun, simple recognition.
That is fun. I think that's an interesting way to look at those two. One's the turnover and one's the classic.
Yeah.
Cool. Another pairing we can talk about pretty quickly is a deluxe song called You Are in Love, juxtaposed with Clean. And just the quick version of this is You Are in Love is following this relationship of all these little things that you go back and you remember and you think of all these small behaviors and small memories and kind of like a montage, like what we were talking about before. And at the end of it, all of these little things are proof that you are in love. And all of these were like those expressions of the love and the ways that you showed me you loved me and the stepping stones to building this beautiful relationship. And then in Clean, it's looking back at all of these absolutely toxic memories that did not build the relationship. They did not mean those positive, wonderful things of strengthening and building and supporting and loving. They were moments of toxicity that were crumbling a relationship, that were destroying a relationship, and that were just pointing to something so destructive and so horrible and toxic that you need to be completely purged of those memories, of those feelings, of those thoughts, of those ideas. And so there's that huge contrast of what do those small moments bring you to? Do they bring you to this awful feeling of being a junkie and like trying to get a hit off of the most destructive thing you can find? Or are they moments and pieces of this beautiful puzzle of different things building into a very strong, caring, supportive, loving relationship? So,
yeah, I see the memories in You Are in Love as building blocks for a relationship, whereas in Clean, she uses these words of decay and those blocks that maybe at one time could have built something beautiful. They just are decaying. The flowers die, the butterflies turn to dust. It never went anywhere and it started to rot kind of from the inside out. So
a very,
very
different perspective on relationships and memories.
Yeah, well, and speaking of different takes on relationships, the ones that I really wanted to get into are This Love and I Wish You Would. I think the simplest way that I can explain my thinking process on this contradiction is by saying that I wish you would come back to me versus this love came back to me. And that's kind of what I see in these two songs. I Wish You Would is sad longing of wishing that it didn't end, wishing that something that you let go would come back. Specifically, she says, I wish we could go back and remember what we were fighting for. And just that I miss what we were and I wish it would come back versus this love, which is a lovely song about the love that did come back, where she had to let it go, but it came back to her. And the visuals of this love that comes back from the dead is so strong and just striking that it wasn't over. It came back, and how hopeful and happy she is that it did. And it's just very different from I Wish You Would.
Yeah. And this love is almost like a surprise. Like, I can't believe that this really did work out and that it saved her, that it was this healing type of thing, but that it was a surprise. And I Wish You Would is just this wishing on something that you know will never happen.
Yeah. It's like sitting by the door waiting for it to open and for that person to come back inside, and they just don't. They never do. Whereas I like that you said this love is kind of I love the bringing in of the phrase, if you love something, you have to let it go. That combined with what we've been talking about of how, this is something that she let go, that she had somewhat moved on from, and is realizing it did come back. It was true, it was real, and so it came back. And I think that realization is really special. If I love this person, I need to let them go for now, and to be okay with that, and then to also be surprised and in awe and love the fact that they come back. I think it's a beautiful sentiment, and I think she writes it so beautifully.
Yep. I love those ideas. What a great conversation.
And sadly, that's where we're going to have to leave it today. This is going to be a two-part conversation.
We have much more to talk about. We're only halfway through with her albums, and we will also be releasing a bonus episode. So stay tuned for that next week. So yeah, we'll continue the conversation and dive into the rest of her albums.
Thank you for coming along with us and listening.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Our Swift Epiphanies.
Follow us on social media at Our Swift Epiphanies for behind the scenes and bonus content, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive video content.
Get in on the conversation by commenting or messaging us with your Swift Epiphanies.